Let's go back to our notes and needs to knows. See if you can check off any of these. Common Core, how are we feeling about that? Still got questions about it, or we covered it? In my opinion, we have, but I need to know from you. Okay? So we'll knock that one off. Video, haven't talked about. Grouping, good?
Yep.
Framework of PBL, got most of that. Contracts?
Yep.
Behavior?
Yep.
And again, I'll repeat our mantra, because that really ties a lot of this together. Trust, respect, responsibility. That's what we talk about all the time. That's our school rules, right there. If you're doing those three things, we really don't have too many issues. So, of course we have to remind them, of course they make mistakes, but that's what we focus on, rather than do this, don't do that, kind of things. Edmodo, we can come back to that.
I think we're okay with that, right, Brian?
Yeah, we don't need that.
Okay. Because that would be one I would do a little voluntary workshop on if necessary.
You guys,
Everybody okay with it?
you guys
Yeah.
don't really use that motto, right?
No, we need something else,
Right.
but, this one, we need some more with this. Reluctant learners and those that don't want to collaborate. You still have questions about that?
Kind of ties into the contracts, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple layers. One, the key thing for PBL to really work at its best is that your project is authentic and interesting and has some inquiry that they care about. When you have those things, this goes away. Now, are there some students that are going to fight you on almost everything sometimes? Yeah. Are there? You might be really excited about it, she might not be, that happens. But the more you can get buy-in with the entry event and an authentic audience and a good thing, that really deals and takes away this stuff, because it's not boring. I mean, that's our students have their biggest issues. Your class is boring. Not saying that personally, but when it is, that's when you lose them. And contracts is the method to dealing with those things. Culture piece, we'll come back on that one. I'll put a check, but we're definitely not done. Grading, more questions about that, or
Yeah.
that makes sense?
I still have some.
Okay, so let's do more with that then.
Well, yeah. I even asked you yesterday, how do you, when they're, I don't know, when they're presenting, I just have a hard time, how do you grade, if I know that there are some kids that didn't do their job, or even like presenting, some just sat there, you know? So how do I grade that? How do I break it down and?
Group presentation, I do not give them all the same grade. Even a group assignment, I don't always give them the same grade. So, they get up here and present, and one person does all the talking, everybody in the room knows who did the work.
Right.
So, and they know, once they've had me for very long, they know what I'm gonna do. Questions, yeah, oh, I have a question. Catherine's got a question. So I ask a content question, and of course, the person right here who did all the work starts to answer, nope, not you, I wanna know from this person. I don't know. And I ask the next person, I don't know. Then I go back to this person. And it's real obvious to everyone in the class, and I'm pointing it out for themselves, you didn't do the work here. So I do not give them all the same scores, even for these, I grade them individually. So even though it's a group project, as much as possible, I do individual grades. And I also use Google Docs at the end, and they fill out they evaluate each other. So they evaluate each other on collaboration, communication, who did what. And I like to ask questions like this. Rate, instead of just ranking, instead of just rating, I ask them to rank their group members from least to most on collaboration, or on communication, or on who did the most of this project. So tell me who did the most, you can't have any ties here, rank them. And then, the second follow-up question is, I want you to tell me who did what. And I often, in the box, give them a whole bunch of stuff that was part of the project. Who did the storyboard, who shot the film, who edited, who act, and now, all the things, who did the research, who did this part of it. And tell me what you did, tell me what every group member, including yourself, did, and then they have to list it all out. And let's be honest, they've been working on this for weeks, and I'm walking around the room, I already know.
Right.
So they're just verifying usually what I already know, and I usually use their scores, because they're usually pretty honest. And if they're not, then I put in what I think.
So then how do you put that, how do you put that into the grade book?
How do I put that in
Like,
the
do you
grade book?
have a couple of different grades for that project then?
Yes. So we use standards-based grading here, and so we grade the content only separate from these things. And so our standards-based grading, are you familiar with that? So they can reassess on the content only, they cannot reassess on these things. You get one shot to come up here and present in front of the class. If you bomb it, better luck next time. But the content they can all reassess. So they can reassess that content, but they can't reassess all these things. So that's where I take those scores and just translate them into the gradebook from that spreadsheet, with adaptations as I see fit. If I have someone who's just totally lying about themselves. Yes.
What we did, after you guys training on skills on the standards-based grading, we made like an 80% of your grade is your skills or content, 20% professionalism. Are we still calling these skills? Does that make sense? What's your grade book breakdown look like? I think you said 60-40 earlier.
Yeah, these are 10% each, and then 60% content.
Okay.
In English, to be honest, English is the one that's a little bit messy, because a lot of these would be content almost, because English is so skills based. But mine is all content. It's causes of World War I, origins of the Cold War. So mine is all content. These are not. There's Common Core standards for social studies, but I don't assess those because I can't teach with an English teacher.
So
He's really doing an assessment on those. I do them, but I just want to assess them.
So in the skills category, I could have one rubric and assignment for the content of the presentation, and one rubric and assignment for these other things, both in the skills-based section.
Yep, and we have, see for these, we have, because we all do this, and this is something maybe you want to, South Haven people consider, is develop some of these and make a rubric that you all share. Like make one rubric that you all use, so there's some consistency, and then you're not all teaching different things. So that's something for you to consider as a department, making common rubrics. We have common rubrics for these as a school. So it sounds like professionalism is what we call agency, very similar.
What's your definition
Hold on.
to you?
It's being self-reliant, and a lot of it does end up being the way we assess it is your stuff done on time. Especially with standards-based grading, we find some kids that just don't do it till the final end.
Right.
And we want to reflect the parents that they're not taking advantage of standard-based grading, they're just putting it off. So we added that in, because this was a new one this year, because that was a problem we had last year. You have, the project's due today, you can rework it for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from today, I'm getting the first attempt from a whole bunch of students. In the next 2 weeks, when we're supposed to be working on the next thing, they're still back on that. So it was really harmful for our class that they were just burying themselves. So, and the agency is adding some incentive to be done on time.
If you have presentations on Friday of your project, is it you're all presenting with whatever you have? Or is it you can turn your presentation in 2 weeks?
Yes, but because the standards-based grading, that presentation is this grade, the content down here, they can still turn in later. That's how they, it's a game. Everything in school is a game. Students figure out how to game every system, so we keep changing the rules, trying to make it focus on learning instead of manipulating. That's what we're trying to do. We have certain students, a student, we'll call him Billy, who, he's really good at listening and figuring out stuff, and he would do nothing and fail all these and be a pain in his group, but listen to all the presentations, then he'd go ace the content. So he's gaming the system. He's not learning the stuff that we think is important. So that's why we increased these and lowered our content score. So a student like him, now you can't pass because you're not doing these things too, and we think this matters as much as the content. So as we see flaws, we're just trying to adjust our grade system to what we think is important. And of course, the state tells us content matters, and it does matter, but we also believe these matter. We don't want a kid just to learn the content and not learn how to work with others. That matters to us.
How do you reassess the content once they're not going to be giving another talk again? Then you ask them to write it down?
Yeah, write it, or I'll let them do it verbally sometimes. You let them do it verbally, and I always think that's easier, but I've found that a lot of students don't want to do that. They're either afraid of me, or I drill them with so many questions they'd rather write it. Not intentionally, usually I'm trying to help them express what I hope is in there. But some of the kids are petrified to do it verbally, so I'll write it. Other kids hate writing, they want to do it verbally. Those are the two ways I usually do it. Does that help with grading?